really, like I say, a lot of people would warn me about messing with the wrong kind of people. Like I said, the USF, those body armor suits, well, basically from between 1940 or 1930 or 1920, those suits were actually from 1800, 1890 or some year, and are actually quite old and originally from China. They developed them in conjunction with some Germans. But since the German scientists have been tortured and killed and raped and all that other stuff, and so have the Chinese people who developed the suits as well, been tortured, killed, and basically executed by these other people who found the prototypes. And then after over the years, the suits actually got damaged quite a bit. Like I said, every encounter, the suits would take damage. I mean, it wasn't impossible, and eventually some people did say, well, if we shoot them enough times, maybe it'll penetrate and get through. And they did shoot them a lot with a lot of high-powered caliber Gatling guns and a lot of other things, to where they were basically pot-marched, so they needed repair. And like I said, fiberglass and Kevlar, once you damage it and once you fracture the ceramic plates, they lose their capability to stop bullets, to where the bullets start getting through. If you shoot a place enough times, eventually it will penetrate even tough body armor. So, while 22 caliber, actually, like I say, M16s. That's why I don't know about M16 if it would penetrate. Some people say the muzzle velocity is higher and it's a smaller bullet and better to use, but I don't know. But basically, pretty much, basically the suits actually got damaged, and that's why they started the USF training camp to protect the nation, blah blah, USAF, yeah, oh yeah. Basically, these kids, that they pretty much were going to kill, and they pretty much used them as sex slaves or whatever. And basically, John McCain, Richard Nixon just needed them to basically help them repair their body armor, which had been vastly destroyed. Like I said, there was only 50 original prototypes and some repair kits and spare armor pieces for them. They weren't actually a lot of armor, and over the years, they were down to 3 good working pairs or something like that of armor. And they basically needed these kids to build them more. And pretty much these kids had no idea where the body armor actually came from, or who had actually invented it, or who had actually, or how many people had actually died for them to actually be able to even look at it, which was basically a lot of Germans and a lot of Chinese. Basically, and pretty much those people have been tortured and killed for the information on how to build those suits. And realistically, the suits were quite old. But basically, John McCain, Richard Nixon, Congress were actually really bad pieces of shit, and have always been pieces of shit, and basically wearing these body armors, and then come 1990s, whatever, these people were like, oh, let's sell it, yeah. And eventually, and realistically, I was like, well, the body armor is really, really, really old. It was like 150 years old or something, or 200 years old. And we've had it for a long time. So, I mean, hey, sell it to the open market, I don't care. Anyway, but realistically, that's when people really realized or started to understand who these people actually were that had been killing them and hurting them. And pretty much, the suits are very damaged, and it's a very bad, horrible story of these full body armor suits and who actually invented them or developed them. And basically, I developed them and invented them, but I never used them. They lied, and they were in a warehouse for years, basically untouched, until somebody finally killed the people that worked there or guarded them. And they basically just found 50 of these suits, or 75 of these suits. Basically, there are 3 or 4 different types, and that's when they decided, oh yeah, USF alpha male. And they basically went around grabbing a bunch of people wearing these suits, and basically thought that nobody would ever know who they were, and it was John McCain, Richard Nixon, and JFK, and a bunch of other pieces of shit that were pretending to be Congress people, but realistically they're USAF people. Anyone who says that they're USAF, basically body armor suits, that's what they were. And they were trying to pretend that they were Air Force people, but they were actually body armor people. And the people even said, I don't know why they gave us these uniforms that says United States Air Force. We're United States Armored Force. That's what we really are, and that's what they were really doing. But then people would have known them for being the pieces of shit that basically went to the Middle East and were killing and raping and doing all kinds of horrible things, and connected to John McCain, Richard Nixon, and everything that they did involving the SR-71, or the LS, USAF-71, which was made out of depleted uranium and not even titanium, and all that stuff. And they had found the LSF-71s sitting inside of a warehouse, and they had been sitting there for 500 or 1,500 years. Anyway, untouched, waxed, just covered with a sheet. Anyway, but there's a lot about that, and then the USAF people had killed everybody at the German air base, and then killed everyone at the French air base, and then killed a bunch of other people, and then tried to say that it was Lockheed and John McCain, Richard Nixon, and America, but it was actually Germany and Russia and some other people. And I think at the time I did make them out of depleted uranium. I mean, we're talking about like hundreds of years ago. And it's because I had so much depleted uranium, or thousands of years ago, and I had a lot of depleted uranium or something. I was like, hey, let's build a ship, a jet out of it. Anyway, they made it really, really thin, and it turned out it could go to orbit and back, and it made a very good heat shield or something. Anyway, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter, but they were my aircraft, so. Anyway. And then lots of stuff, and then that's why they were also trying to kill me when I was 9 years old and 8 years old and all this other stuff, because I am real. And anyway, and very verifiable, because I know about these aircraft and a bunch of others. And they're basically my ships that could actually be able to go to the moon and stuff. And I owned them for many years, and pretty much Rodney and Rick Bush and a bunch of other people have basically been trying to get me killed, or wait for me to get killed, or expected me to die any day now, before I could tell anyone who I really was. Calling me Brian. I'm not Brian. I'm Lucifer Star. Yeah, whatever. Just relaxing as a Brian, though. And I named America, and I don't care. And they were trying to kill me so they could kick off this whole Republican Democratic revolution and say that they were good people or something. Or that USF was some good group. And basically, it was just a bunch of opium and running drugs, and it's a big sex freak party where they basically demanded sex from all the cadets. Whatever.